To the Minister of Finance, does he stand by his statement, quote, "We're getting the right kind of recovery if you take a longer-term point of view," close quote.
Mr Speaker, yes. While the recovery has been patchy, there are early signs that the imbalances that have handicapped this economy through the last 5 or 6 years are unwinding, and those imbalances are pretty straightforward. Too much of our resource and borrowing has financed an increase in non-tradable, that is domestically focused activity, and not enough of it has gone on growing our export capacity, and when you're a trading nation, that is pretty important.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Speaker, how was the longer-term point of view improved by cutting KiwiSaver incentives and deferring for a decade contributions to the New Zealand Superannuation Fund?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, because we didn't have any cash to put into the New Zealand Super Fund. In fact, this financial year the New Zealand Government is running a $13 billion cash deficit. And if the member is worried about the state of the economy and what's caused it, normally I would say to that member, look in the mirror, but in his case he doesn't need much encouragement.
Order.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, if there was, to the Minister.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
If there was insufficient cash to pre-fund the retirement plan for New Zealanders, why was there enough cash to give tax cuts to his wealthy mates?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, the members clearly arrived from some other planet.
Order.
In the last...
Order. Now look, the House will come display some courtesy. I'm extremely disappointed with the quality of questions being asked today and some of the answers being given. The Minister made a very unhelpful comment at the end of his last answer, which I ignored, and maybe I shouldn't have ignored. But to start the answer to a question with an attack on the questioner is simply not acceptable and does not show a minister on top of the minister's game at all. It shows a minister stooping to attack another member of this House instead of demonstrating their skill at being on top of the game and answering even a poor question. Well, I'm not saying that was a poor question, but answering questions as well as they can. But I must say today I think the quality of questions has been very poor, been more political statement than question, and I could apply the standing orders and rule a lot of them out, and the House would possibly be a lot better for it. But I don't want to do that. But if members are going to continue to just make political statements instead of asking questions, I may have to do that because the quality of question time has to improve, and today has not been a high-quality question time. Now, it's not helped when a minister simply attacks a questioner like that. That is unacceptable. The Honourable Bill English will come to the question asked.
Well, Mr Speaker, that's a rather unusual question given that this House has spent 3 or 4 months debating a budget where the funding for the income tax cuts comes about half of it from GST increases, and I thought the member knew about the GST increase because his party's campaigning on it, and also revenue from other sources that made the package broadly fiscally neutral. And the result of that package is that 75% of earners in New Zealand now have a top statutory tax rate of 17.5 cents.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, to the Minister, how can he expect to reduce overseas debt through savings when he is planning to further liberalise the overseas investment regime, making it easier for foreigners to buy New Zealand land and assets?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, actually, Mr Speaker, the government has signalled its understanding of the concern about overseas investment and assets, but we need to bear in mind that in order to have jobs in New Zealand, because we don't save enough, we need overseas investment, or we just simply won't have the capital coming in to create jobs. And so we've got to strike a balance between our need for overseas capital because we don't provide it ourselves, at the same time as protecting those things that are very important to New Zealanders.
Question number 7, Chris Oakenfold.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.